fun couple of hours dreaming about Robert Thomas of the St. Louis Blues changing the Blues uniform, which has always, as a kid, it's been very different at times, but I used to confuse the Blues with the Sabres when I was little. Maybe a lot of you that are the same age grew up watching those Saturday afternoon games on NBC. Remember the Blues and thinking, like, it looks kind of similar. Anyway, Robert Thomas has been the talk of the town here today, at least, well, the talk of the show. Anyway, I don't want to be so bold as to say it's the talk of the town because, I don't know how far our reach is. But, we're on the Twitch now. So we've always got, and YouTube, we got that going for us. Just to review quickly, Darren Drager, Sabres are in hot and heavy, I'm paraphrasing, on Robert Thomas of the Blues. Chris Johnston says likewise, and the equivalent of 3 first-round picks, maybe, going back. Not all actually first-round picks, but a package that equates to that. Is what he was talking about. There's been a lot of other stuff on the fringes, like those are the big guys. Jeremy Rutherford of The Athletic, long time on the Blues beat, mentioned earlier that despite being very interested in Bo Byram over the summer, that he is not believed to be a part of the package being discussed between the Sabres and the Blues. The most notable thing about that is that Jeremy Rutherford is referring to the package. That implies that this is, maybe it's close. I don't want to pretend like it's imminent, but who knows? But there was that. There has been some, and maybe if you're the kind of Sabres fan that is listening to me, watching me on the Twitch or the YouTube today, also refreshing Twitter for any kind of Robert Thomas news, you might be seeing different reports. I just came across one from Jordan Schmaltz, whose Twitter bio I kind of like. Cup of Cups of Joe in the NHL, played a couple games. All-star in the AHL, not saying I was good. He has been running with this trade is alive. It's an idea. Jack Quinn, Consta Helenus, and Owen Power, which is the first time I shuddered the whole time I've been sort of following this story. But I will tell you, after coming across that tweet just a little bit ago in my feed, I went to Jordan Schmaltz's page, and he has since posted a tweet saying he's hearing Power is not a part of it, which is a huge relief to me. To me, any trade that they're making that doesn't disturb their superpower, which is those top 4D, I don't want to say any trade I'm in favor of, but like a trade of this magnitude, a trade to acquire a top centerman that doesn't include Byram Power, Dahlin, or Samuelson, I'm all ears. There are other guys that would hurt. I'd like to see Helenus develop here as a Sabre, but if he has to be the piece of this trade package that's going to sting, I'm ready to be stung. Sting away. I love this Thomas idea. I think it gives the Sabres so much more flexibility. I think, like a lot of you, I've been all year worried about Josh Norris. That is an excellent player. Last week, one day, I was in here by myself, I think maybe last Wednesday, I don't remember, talking about the single biggest variable in the Sabres being not just a playoff team, but making noise in the Eastern Conference is Josh Norris. I think if he's there and you can count on close to point-a-game type performance and good 200-foot play, then I think you've got to look at this. I think if he gets hurt again, which has happened every single year of his NHL career, and now maybe he's already through it for this year, and he'll be fine from here to the end whenever the end comes. Hopefully, in the into the playoffs. But having another guy like Thomas, who in the short term might force you to move Thompson back out to the wing, probably would, because I don't think you're going to go with those three guys all as centers. I think you want to have those guys all be three of your top six. So, but having Thomas there and moving Tage, if indeed that ends up being what happens, gives you at least a fallback if something happens to Norris. So I'm not sunk if one of my top two centers is hurt again. I know anyone can get hurt. It's just Norris, his history is scary. I think it's the biggest reason why Ottawa was willing to move him last year at the deadline, because they were headed to the playoffs and they wanted some kind of certainty, as much certainty as you can have playing pro sports night to night, about their lineup. And they just decided after too many injury-riddled years that they couldn't count on Norris. And while Cousins isn't going to give them the production that Norris was going to give them, it would give them at least a stable presence in the lineup. And so I think the Sabres could be trying to accomplish the same thing here without divesting themselves of Norris in the process. That's how I see it for now. I think the rest can just come up naturally as we talk here. 803-0550 is the number. Nick is first up this segment. Hi, Nick. Thanks for calling. You're on WGR.
Hey, guys. How are you? I just started listening probably about 10 minutes ago, so correct me if I'm wrong or stop me. But the question I want to bring up is with Norris.
Mm-hmm.
Are we really, I don't want to say stuck with him, but that's why Ottawa wanted to get rid of him, and we're in that predicament now with him. Did anybody bring up that point?
I mentioned it earlier that if St. Louis was open to it, I would have to consider doing it, as much as I do like Norris as a player for the reasons that I just talked about. But the reporting does not indicate at all at this point, and I would be surprised, frankly, because I think him getting here and getting hurt already twice this year, again, just further scars his reputation. And I would be really surprised if the Blues took that contract off your hands.
I understand that point, but kind of what I was getting at, I wasn't even really talking about adding him in the Thomas deal. I was talking about maybe shopping him a little bit to see if there was any market for him to maybe bring someone else in, maybe another defenseman for the bottom pair, somewhere along those lines.
That I would have to be open to that. Again, I'm going to be surprised if they can move that contract. It's a tough deal to take on given his injury history. And it was for the Sabres. They were in a position to take the chance. They took it, and it has not really stung them yet. I mean, they're having this incredible season here that we didn't really see coming. Maybe plenty of you might have thought the Sabres could be improved, but to be, a contending level team was not something I saw in the cards. And I think that's where they are now. So they've gotten away with it. Sure, if someone wanted to take that contract off my hands and I could replace Norris with Thomas and I don't have to move Tage to the wing, I would have to listen to that. Because I think ultimately, you may end up in a situation this summer where you're choosing between Alex Tuch and, maybe this is a part of it. Maybe you're choosing Norris, and we've already chosen Norris, and Thomas overpaying Tuch because you don't like his age, the contract demands, whatever it is. So if you could free up that money by divesting yourself of Norris, replacing him with Thomas, and then still keep Tuch, that I could be – I'm certainly going to listen to that. I would just be surprised if there's a market for Norris at this point, given the injury history. It's why I like, best case scenario, you make this trade, you don't mess up anything really significant on your NHL roster, especially those top 4D. You still have Norris here. If he's healthy, you are in great shape in your top six. If he gets dinged again, you at least have Thomas and Thompson to sort of offset that, and I like that a lot about this, the deeper you go thinking about it. Thank you for the call. Pat is next up. Hi, Pat. Thanks for calling. You're on the air here on WGR.
Hey, good afternoon. So I guess it's just a story, but I met my wife 20 years ago. The first time she ever came to my house, we watched the Ottawa Brawl. And about beginning of January, we were sitting on the couch, and I look at her, and I'm like, hey, I think we might actually do this. This might actually be happening. We were getting excited. I'm like, if we make the playoffs, I'm buying a new jersey. I haven't bought a jersey since 06, 07. She's like, okay, let's do this. And, the other night after we beat Tampa, I look at her, I'm like, I think this is happening. And I look at her, I'm like, let's do this. So we ordered tickets to the Dallas game, which is, April 15th, the day before my birthday. I'm like, we're going to that game, and I'm buying a new jersey, and you're buying a new jersey. And, when I wake up on my birthday, we're making the playoffs. And it's just, and now we're talking about Robert Thomas, and I'm just thinking to myself, what a world we live in. Like 3 years ago, I canceled my subscription to MSG because we're awful, but now we're here, and it's month and a half before we finish the playoffs, and I'm going to the last game of the season, and I'm buying a new jersey. And how great is this? It just feels it's different to be a Sabres fan since the day you were born. Like, how awesome!
I hear you, Pat. If you don't mind, what jerseys are you guys going to buy? Do you know yet?
So my wife is 4'10", so I told her she should buy a Thompson jersey, so that way when we walk around with them, I can tell people that you don't like hockey, you just want to be tall. And I am leaning between Doan and McLeod, and probably McLeod because he's great and probably has the best smile in all of hockey.
All right. I love it, Pat. Well thought out. Appreciate the phone call here. Yeah, that is how jarring this is. I mean, 3 months ago. I mean, the timeline was when he canceled his TV subscription, that he had for the Sabres. I'm sure plenty of you have done that over the last few years. Just a few months ago, this all, like, I'm trying to be cognizant of the person who, I think people still do this, right? They get out of work and turn on their car and turn on the radio and like, oh, let's see what the guys on the radio are talking about. If you like the show or like us or hate us and listen, whatever turns the crank for you, you get there. You're turning the show on. You're hearing me. You know me, right? Hi, it's me. And I'm talking about this guy from the Blues who's making $8 million a year and is a number one center. And you might be like riding in your car and going like, man, I haven't been paying attention to the league. Like it's a little bit like, to me, like I follow baseball very casually now. Went to a Red Sox game last year. Going to go to a couple more this year. Not in Boston. I'm going to go to Pittsburgh with my son Owen, catch a couple of games in August. I'm very excited about that. But I haven't really gotten, like, I'm not following a bunch of beat reporters on the Red Sox beat. I'm not real plugged in, right? And so this feels a little bit to me like what would happen when, like, free agency in baseball or the trade deadline, and it's some player from a team that I don't follow that's making, some incredible figure, and I'm like, I'm not even sure I know who that is. That I'll bet there are people listening to me right now that are having that experience with Robert Thomas of the St. Louis Blues. Like, who's this now? Was that the guy everybody wanted when you traded Ryan O'Reilly? Yeah, he was one of them. he was on that list, I'm pretty sure. Him and Kyrou were their young up-and-comers then, and have both established themselves as fantastic NHL players. But the Blues are last in their division again and rebuilding, retooling, starting over, stockpiling assets. So it makes sense that they've got a player of this caliber that they're looking to get rich on in the trade market. And the Sabres do happen to have, I'm thinking about a caller from last hour, Mike, who mentioned, like, I'm so flush with guys that, we don't know one from the other, which ones are all going to hit and not hit, which ones are going to turn into, the next big thing or become, career borderline NHLers or AHLers. But, you probably don't have in the very short-term future room for all of them, right? Ostlund got here and sort of forced his way in. Before the break, it looked like maybe Helenius was doing that, but he's gone back to Rochester. He's someone I'm very excited about. But he's on that list. Roseanne, I think, is still on that list. To me, Quinn is sort of in between. He's an NHL player. He's got an NHL contract, but he's not making a ton of dough. And to me, is someone who doesn't have to be a core player here that could easily be included in this mix. Would help offset some salary, too, going out the door. But you've got guys that there just isn't going to be room. Roseanne's another one that there isn't going to be room for all of them here. So I could put 2-3 of them together in a deal and pull in this guy. Man, I'm listening to that all day long. Again, especially if it does not involve those top 4D. Because that to me is like the, as much as, of course, you're not trading Thompson, you're not trading Tuck, I don't think. You're not moving Josh Doan. You just signed him, right? You've got like guys that are obviously, I think, untouchable. You are flush with 4 very high level defensemen right now, but I think moving, obviously Dahlin's not going anywhere. Samuelson's a bargain on the contract he's playing on. It really is about buy room or power, and I would not want to move either one of them right now, even for a player of this caliber. Is there a way you could do it? Sure. I presented a scenario earlier where you move to get Thomas, right? The Blues are going to insist on Byram or power. Let's just say, hypothetically, I'm talking now, okay? This is not what's being or has been reported, all right? And even the one report that mentioned power has already been refuted by the person who said it to begin with. But if you had to, right, you like this idea so much, but it has to be Owen Powers included. How do I do that? I mean, I might just walk away from it. I might not make the deal. And there goes my Josh Norris insurance and all that, right? All the things I like about it go away. But if I were going to do it, well, then what do I have to do now? I have to find a replacement for Power in my lineup. Justin Falk is on the Blues. I did mention this earlier. I don't love this idea because of his age. He's 34. The contract is pretty weighty, $6.5 million. Like, I thought of him even as someone to fill this bottom 6 role. Like, it's a luxury if you have a player of that reputation playing on your third pair. But if you could pull it off financially, like, I was willing to listen to it. Fitting him in to say Owen Power's spot in the lineup is just it's a lot riskier to me. There's not a guy at this stage of his career that is capable of moving around the ice the way those top 4 guys do. So what has Falk been in his career? A point producer, a power play guy, a dependable, very good all-around defenseman. I just think you would lose a lot in how you're attacking teams without a Power in that spot and someone like Falk instead. So if Power had to be involved, I might get to, well, then I need to find Falk here. Or let me see if I can re-engage with Toronto about Oliver Ekman-Larsson, if I ever have engaged in the first place. Because again, in a short-term playoff run type situation, maybe you get away with that, but you'd be really messing with the dynamite that the Sabres have been able to deploy. Like, there's been a lot of talk today. Elliot Friedman had a turn. Jeff Merrick was on our morning show saying, you don't want to do too much to the forward group here because it's working, right? It's been so good. Like, you don't want to mess with it. And certainly adding Robert Thomas is messing with it in a severe way. That's probably your number one center. If you're bumping Tage Thompson out to the wing, I think you're putting Robert Thomas on his line, and you're going. That's it. And Norris is your number 2. And if something happens to Norris, then I've got Thompson. I can slot him back into the middle and move Thomas down, and I keep going, right? And while that does mess with what you've had going up top, it leaves the top 4 defensemen alone. And that, to me, any point being made about not messing with the chemistry of this team, if you want to make it about those 4 dudes, I'm right there with you. I think that could be something that could really mess this whole thing up. Even if you pull in Robert Thomas, but you give up Power or Byram to do it, I think that would be very risky. Because I've said it for weeks here. This team's superpower is those top 4D. Watch how they play. Watch how they cycle. They're not alone in this. A lot of teams have transitioned to cycling in the offensive zone up high above the circles, between the circles and the blue line, is where a lot of the Sabres and a lot of other teams are doing this. Cycling. The get it down low and work it down low and low to high still has its place, but the Sabres effectively cycle up top. And the main reason they are so dangerous and good at it is because of the 4 defensemen they have. They're interchangeable basically with any of your forwards. So that you start cycling up high, and Dahlin having the puck on his stick is the same as Thompson having the puck on his stick. I know the skill sets are different, right? Dahlin's not as apt, or Power is not as apt to take someone off the dribble, so to speak, the way Thompson will. But that high cycle, those 4D are what make that go. And taking any one of them out of there, I think, would be, but I'd have a very tough time, as much as I like this Thomas idea. So, again, most of the reporting does not indicate, like the rumors, that that's the situation. But if it were, I'd have a hard time saying I love this. Because I just don't want to mess with those